My name's Cinquina, and this is my wife Anna. We're two entrepreneurs from Australia, and we have a baby on the way, which we're really excited, but also admittedly pretty scared about, because we've never really done this before.
We love sparkling water and long Aussie summers.
I've been waiting for this since January. Not quite love, but boy, your heart was calling to me. Maybe the season changed, it makes me feel this way. I don't know, but love, it drives me insane.
Like all entrepreneurs, we're more than just business people. We're also creatives, and sometimes it can be really hard to integrate the two.
And although we really do love business, we're always on the search for cool new creative projects that can really grow and inspire us.
Sun goes down. Me and you, baby, till the sun goes down. My summertime fling, just me and you, baby, in the summertime.
So in this process of trying to find creative outlets for our lives, we also realize that the world is changing, and in this new world we're navigating a new landscape of technology, of business, of finance, of communication. And we've just been asking the question lately, how do we continue to learn when everything around us is changing so quickly? And that's what sparked the idea for a new creative film project, something that allowed us to pursue a creative outlet in our lives, but also bring in the entrepreneurial and business passions that we have as well.
So we took about 2 to 3 weeks off, and we flew halfway around the world because Australia is so far from everything, and we wanted to talk to some leading individuals who are at the top of their fields. We didn't really know what to expect or even what we were going to get out of it, but we knew we wanted to create something really engaging and to just capture some really interesting footage. We flew to New York, LA and San Francisco, and it was a crazy few weeks.
We tried to keep these conversations pretty unscripted. I reached out to and talked to some of the leading innovators and thought leaders in branding, technology, ecotech, marketing, and I asked questions like, what does the future look like? And from that, we came away with a series that we've called Thought Leaders.
And I interviewed women who are also at the top of their field to really hear their stories and learn from their lessons. They were really raw, engaging, and really powerful stories. And that series is called Anna and the Startup, which is going to be launched really soon.
We wanted to share some of the highlights, some of the milestones, and some of the best and most profound thoughts that came from these conversations, in the hope that it helps and inspires and motivates you as much as it did us.
We were so blessed to be able to speak to such intelligent people who really opened up their homes and offices to us. And we really hope that you guys can take away something from the footage, because we learned so much during the process as well.
Late 90s, where you did have kind of international brands. Sure, Pepsi was an international brand, but a global brand, meaning, there was a vision that was then deployed, a singular vision deployed across the world. That was global. International was, we're in a lot of places. Global was, we're a single vision in a lot of places. And I think that's kind of the beginning of our business, where brands start to become global.
What do brands need to do to stay relevant, to stay different, to stay engaging, to keep that cut through? You mentioned disruption, the perfect word.
Well, I think the first thing that brands need to understand is that their competition isn't necessarily only other brands. Their competition is my need to go look at my phone. Right? I need to look at my phone now, right? People are obsessed with looking at their phone. So it's wonderful that you've got a brand new whiskey. I think that's phenomenal. But what do you have to do with me looking at my phone? And if you knew, if every brief said, our agenda is to keep everyone from looking at their phone, that's probably the best brief I'd ever see. Sure. Right? I just made that up. I mean, I've never had that brief before. I'm going to give that to some people now. There's so much competition for the world of distraction. Everybody's got their agenda, everybody's got the things they're trying to do in life, and everything else is distraction. Now, some distraction is virtuous, and it's a distraction that can
Yeah.
be a utility for your life in some way, but other bits of distraction are just distracting.
I don't know if it's that I didn't have another choice because I had committed to like starting my own company, and once you start, failure is not an option. What am I gonna do? Stop Finn and go work at like Tiffany or something, like selling diamond rings? It's just not that hard. It shouldn't be like I need to go to business school to learn how to run a company. You have an instinct, like follow your instinct. Saying I failed at something is a very easy out. There's always a way to fix something or do it differently. And I have failed at certain things. I am totally neurotic and have serious anxiety and worry about things morning, noon, and night. But somehow I walk into this office and I just have to do what has to be done.
If you could go back and tell yourself something when you're younger, I would love to know.
It's be as wild as you can,
Okay.
as long as you can.
You were here during that dot-com boom in the 90s. How does that sophistication around sort of strategic company growth compare now to, I guess it was 15, 20 years ago now?
Yeah, it's night and day, and I think that's where I think the press inaccurately draws a lot of parallels now to all this bubble talk in drawing parallels to what was going on in 98 through 2000. There were a lot of innovative, interesting ideas in that period, and companies that received a lot of money that probably shouldn't have, companies that went public that probably shouldn't have, because it was all on the premise of an idea and a concept. I think the same holds true today, but today the successful companies you're seeing that are getting funded, that are going public, that are getting customers, these are real businesses. They have the numbers to back it up. It's not just a slick PowerPoint slide that says close your eyes and imagine the following and just think of what we could build. They're building it, and the revenue is there, the customers are there, the transactions are there, the competitive cannibalization is there in terms of market share that they're eating up from the incumbents. These are all very real business models, and I think the investment community and certainly the customers that those markets are serving realize that.
I went on to write a master's thesis on satellite communications and its potential impact on governments, on people, on communications. That powerful idea that really led me into work in the satellite business, work in the cable business, work in television, and then put all those things together to create the first basic cable network delivered by a satellite across the country, set up the new business model for it, which was 2 revenue streams, advertising and getting a license fee from the cable operator. And it was really just the beginning of the growth of the cable industry, and grew to a multi-billion-dollar business over the 20-some years that I ran the company. When President Clinton asked me to take a presidential appointment to chair the National Women's Business Council in 1998, I said, yes, I could do that, but I said to him, this isn't the challenge I want to meet. I'm not reporting to Congress. I said, I want to get women into private equity. I want to get big financing behind women's businesses that are growth businesses. So he said, great. And so I used that platform really to what became Springboard Enterprises, launch that. We went to Silicon Valley. I went to Silicon Valley because that's where the money was. And I got some colleagues around the table with us, and we said, look, we would like to see if we can find some women-run businesses that venture capital will back. And some people said, yeah, we'll help you. And some people said, you're crazy. They're not gonna, women aren't up to it. They don't grow these kind of businesses. They think we all bake cookies. Well, we all bake them and eat them, but that doesn't mean that that's our business, We're hoping to get 100 applications, so maybe we could have 10 companies to put through a training program and then present them to the venture capitalists. We got 350. And I knew right then that this was an underfunded marketplace. And the reason we had to create it was because there just wasn't a connection. In '99, there was $104 billion in venture capital invested in the United States. 1.7% went to women-led businesses. I said, somebody's got to do something about this. So I just set out into the wilderness trying to find.
I love that attitude. You hear this crazy stat, and it's very, very sad to hear it, but you're like, let's do something about it. Let's just make it happen.
I'm a results-oriented person. You know, if you have venture, you have to return the capital and make money for the people who have invested in you. Over 150 of them have had their liquidity events, including 11 IPOs. And those 11 IPOs today have a market value of over $6 billion. So these are big businesses, they're growing.
Qualitative, there's always room for interpretation. That person gives you a fake smile and walks out the door. You think that you pleased them, but quantitatively, when they don't come back, you know that you didn't. I think it does keep you a little bit more grounded on the metric side as well if you use them in the right way, particularly around retention. You know, retention and engagement are kind of the metrics that people are looking at these days, and just realizing that retention and engagement are probably more important than top line growth. If you can retain customers, you can drive top line growth. If you can't, then you really drive replacement growth. And so it's within those retention numbers that you learn a lot. How did we treat that person differently? How did that person use the product differently? What were they doing before? What was their referring source?
Where do you think the future of marketing is going in the next 5 years?
I think you can look to Dropbox a few years ago to see the future of marketing, as weird as that sounds. At Dropbox, part of the reason I'd come up with the term growth hacking or growth hacker was so that we could find someone with the right profile to go in and work at Dropbox and be able to keep taking it to the next level. Well, it turned out that we didn't. So they didn't bring in another marketer or growth person for, I think it was more than a year after I left, yet their growth didn't miss a beat. Their growth stayed really strong, the strongest trajectory that I've ever worked on. And I think part of it was, in the 6 months that I was there, one of my big goals was to make the culture of growth something that really took hold there. Everybody saw the results of the tests as we were running the tests, and people could see the impact of the tests. Each of these things made the team smarter about the tests that they were going to run. And so to me, that starts to reflect what the organization of the future looks like. What growth looks like is when the entire company takes an interest in growth. When you have every person in the company essentially as a probe in the market looking for new opportunities for growth, those businesses will grow very, very quickly. That's where I'm trying to take things, and I think that's where they're going anyway.
So it's really great when you talk about the struggles.
Yeah.
What have been some of the other difficulties in the process of having a startup?
I'd say just like managing my own psychology has been kind of difficult. Like I haven't, like going through all of that, I didn't have too many friends who were going through something similar. Like they'd either succeed and I was jealous, or they'd failed and then they got out of the business. But I didn't have too many who were like in limbo land state. So that was very challenging for me. And then as the business started to grow, we didn't have any support network to help us figure out how do we go through our growing pains, because growing pains are still pains. So that's when that's why we joined like EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, and I joined YPO, Young Presidents Organization, and just like all these other groups for finding other people to lean on. That's one regret. I wish we had done that sooner. We just kind of waited too late and thought we could do it all ourselves, or we didn't want to be vulnerable and talk to other people about all of our problems. Like going to a network event, you say, hey, how's it going? And you're like, oh, it's great, I'm doing great. But really, like, you feel like horrible and everything's going wrong. So I think that's like something I wish I had learned earlier. So now I'm like pretty open about it.